There's a war going on in America right now. No tanks, no headlines, no draft cards in the mail, but there are casualties, millions of them, and most of them don't even know they're fighting. It's a war between two words, independence and survival. Because here's the number nobody wants to say out loud on camera. Over half of Gen Z adults, grown adults, degree in hand, job title on LinkedIn, are still getting money from their parents just to make it through the month. Rent, groceries, phone bills, car payments. Some of them are 28, some are 32. Some have kids of their own, and their parents are still the ones keeping the lights on. They call it the bank of mom and dad. It sounds warm, cute even, like a piggy bank shaped like a house. It is not warm. It is the most quietly devastating financial institution in America because it has no interest rate, no repayment schedule, and no exit strategy. And unlike every other bank, when this one finally closes its doors, there's no warning letter. There's just silence, panic, and a 30-year-old standing in a kitchen that isn't theirs, wondering how they got here. Tonight we're going to tell you 7 stories, 7 people, 7 different battles inside the same war. Every one of them thought their situation was unique, a special case, a temporary bridge, a smart move. Every one of them was wrong in the exact same way. And by the end, you're going to understand something most people never figure out until it's too late. Dependency doesn't look like weakness. It looks like comfort. And comfort is the most expensive thing you will ever buy. Let's go to war. Part 1. The numbers behind the war. Before the stories, you need the battlefield map. Multiple recent surveys, from Bank of Rate to Credit Karma to Savings.com, have landed on a strikingly consistent picture. Somewhere between 45% and 60% of Gen Z adults receive regular financial help from parents. Not a one-time graduation gift. Regular, monthly, structural. Around a third of millennials report the same thing, and the average amount isn't pocket change. It clusters around $1,400 to $1,500 a month in some surveys, enough to cover a used car payment, a chunk of rent, or a semester of groceries. Meanwhile, parents are bleeding for it. A huge share of parents providing the support say it's actively delaying their own retirement. Some are pulling from retirement accounts to fund a 27-year-old's rent. That's not a safety net. That's 2 people standing on the same rope over the same cliff. Here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. This isn't a story about lazy kids and broke parents. It's happening at every income level. Rich families do it. Middle-class families do it. Poor families max out credit cards doing it. The mechanism is the same everywhere, only the currency changes. So what is the mechanism? That's what the 7 stories are going to show you. Story 1. The engineer who couldn't afford his own life. Meet Derek, 26 years old, mechanical engineering degree from a respectable state school. Salary, $74,000 a year. On paper, Derek is winning. Derek is the kid every parent brags about at Thanksgiving. Here's what nobody at Thanksgiving knows. Derek's rent is $1,650 a month for a 1-bedroom in a mid-size metro. His car payment is $410. His student loan payment is $380. His phone, insurance, gym, subscriptions, and the just this once dinners with friends who make more than him, because in his mind he should be able to afford that life, eat the rest. By the 22nd of every month, Derek's checking account reads under $200. And every month, like clockwork, a $500 transfer arrives from his father. Derek doesn't ask for it out loud, he just mentions things. Rent's a little tight this month. His dad has learned to hear that sentence as a request. The transfer comes before Derek even has to say, please. Derek isn't broke because he's irresponsible. Derek is broke because he built a lifestyle sized for the income he wishes he had, not the income he actually has. and the gap gets quietly filled by someone else, so the truth never catches up to him. Morgan Housel writes about this exact trap in The Psychology of Money. The idea that the hardest financial skill isn't earning money, it's making your desires match your reality. Derek's desires and his reality are living in two different tax brackets, and his father is the currency exchange smoothing the difference. The lesson: if a stranger has to subsidize your lifestyle to make it work, it isn't working. It's being propped up. And propped up things collapse the moment the prop is removed.
Story 2. The influencer whose entire life was a set. Sasha had 40,000 followers and a life that looked like a Pinterest board. The apartment, always tidy, always warmly lit, was actually her parents' second property, rent-free, just until she got on her feet. The car and her content, leased in her father's name. The trips she filmed, booked on her mother's credit card because content is basically a business expense, right? For 3 years, Sasha's entire brand was built on the aesthetics of a self-made life she wasn't actually living. And here's the trap within the trap. The better her content performed, the more convinced she became that she was close. That any month now, brand deals would catch up to the lifestyle, and the dependency would quietly end on its own. It never did. Brand deals paid in bursts, $800 one month, $50 the next. The floor under her entire life was never her income. It was her parents' patience. Bill Perkins' book, Die with Zero, is famous for arguing you should spend your money on experiences while you're young enough to enjoy them. Sasha weaponized that idea completely backwards. She was spending money and experiences she hadn't earned, borrowing not from her future self, but from her parents' future, the one where they retire on schedule. The math finally broke when her father lost half his overtime hours. The credit card got cut. The lease payment bounced. And Sasha had to explain to her followers, in a shaky 60-second video, why the girl who built her life from nothing was moving back into her childhood bedroom. A life curated to look independent and a life that is independent are not the same thing, and the gap between them always closes eventually, usually at the worst possible moment.
Story 3. The couple who bought a house they couldn't defend. Jake and Melissa did everything right by the checklist. Married at 29, stable jobs, a combined income of $118,000. When they went house hunting, Melissa's parents offered $60,000 toward the down payment. So you don't have to wait. So you can build equity now instead of throwing money away on rent. It felt like a gift. It was actually a lever. One that quietly shifted the size of the house they qualified for. Instead of a $280,000 starter home their income comfortably supported, they bought a $410,000 house that only made sense with the gifted down payment covering the gap. The mortgage, taxes, and insurance came to $2,890 a month. Manageable, barely, with 2 full incomes and 0 surprises. Then Melissa got pregnant. Then daycare quotes came back at $1,600 a month. Then Jake's company did a round of layoffs, and his overtime disappeared. Suddenly, the house that felt like a milestone felt like a hostage situation. And the same parents who'd handed over $60,000 for the down payment were now getting phone calls asking for help with the mortgage itself. Because once you accept capital for size instead of capital for safety, the dependency doesn't end at the closing table. It moves in with you. Robert Kiyosaki's core lesson in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is brutally simple. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. And a house that stretches you past your independent means is a liability wearing an asset's clothing. Jake and Melissa didn't buy a house. They bought a monthly test of whether the gift would need a sequel.
Story 4. The startup founder funded by guilt.
Marcus quit his job at 24 to build an app. Bold move, admirable even, The problem was the runway. Marcus had 4 months of personal savings and a business plan built on an 18-month timeline. So he did what a lot of founders do. He went to his parents. Not investors. Parents. "It's just a bridge," he told them. 6 months, tops. His mother, a nurse working double shifts to make ends meet herself, wired him $3,000. Then, 4 months later, another $2,500. Then a final $4,000 to cover a legal filing. Here's the psychological trap Eric Ries never wrote about in The Lean Startup. When the person funding your minimum viable product is your mother instead of an investor, the feedback loop breaks. An investor pulls funding the second the numbers don't work. That's discipline built into the system. A parent, out of love, keeps funding the hope long after the numbers have already delivered their verdict. Marcus's app never found product market fit. 18 months turned into 3 years. His mother's retirement contributions, the ones she'd paused just for a few months, never resumed. When Marcus finally shelved the project and took a corporate job, he wasn't just recovering from a failed startup. He was starting his career 11 months behind his peers, with the added weight of knowing exactly whose sacrifice had funded the detour. The lesson: passion is not a business plan, and love is not due diligence. If a stranger with money wouldn't fund your idea at this stage, that's information, not an obstacle to route around through someone who loves you too much to say no.
Story 5. The divorcee who rebuilt on borrowed ground. Angela was 34 when her marriage ended. She had a part-time job, primary custody of 2 kids, and a lease she couldn't cover alone. Her parents didn't hesitate. They took her and the kids in, no questions, no timeline. That kind of support isn't a cautionary tale. That's what family is for. The trap wasn't the shelter. The trap was what happened after Angela stabilized. She landed a full-time job 8 months in, enough income to afford a modest 2-bedroom rental nearby. But by then, a rhythm had formed. Her parents had built their days around the grandkids. Angela had built her budget around free groceries and free daycare. Moving out didn't just mean a new lease. It meant unwinding a whole ecosystem, and every attempt to bring it up got met with, "There's no rush, honey." 3 years passed. 3 years turned into 5. Angela is 39 now, still in the guest wing, still telling herself, "Next year." Vicki Robbins' Your Money or Your Life asks a piercing question that applies perfectly here. Is this expense, in Angela's case, this arrangement, actually buying you life energy? Or just buying comfort at the cost of the life you say you actually want? Angela isn't dependent because she's incapable. She's dependent because nobody, not her parents, not her, not one single conversation in 5 years, ever set an end date. Support without an exit ramp doesn't rescue you. It just relocates you, permanently, to a softer version of stuck. The lesson? Emergency support needs an expiration date, spoken out loud, agreed to by both sides. Or, temporary, quietly becomes the rest of your life. Story 7. The parents who went to war for their child and lost the retirement. We end where the real cost lives. Not with the adult child, but with the parents. Diane and Robert are 61 and 63. For 6 years, they've helped their daughter, a single mother of 1, with rent, daycare, and, twice, a car repair. Nothing dramatic, just $600 here, $900 there. A pattern so gradual, neither of them ever sat down and added it up. When Robert finally ran the number for a financial planner ahead of retirement, it landed like a gut punch. $71,000 across 6 years. Not a number either of them would have guessed. Not a number they could have afforded to guess wrong about. Robert's retirement, originally targeted for 65, is now realistically 69. 4 extra years of work, directly caused by money neither of them ever tracked, given for reasons neither of them ever regret, to a daughter who, to this day, doesn't know the total.
Ramit Sethi's "I will teach you to be rich" has a phrase for exactly this failure mode. A money system you never designed on purpose ends up running your life anyway. Diane and Robert never decided to delay retirement by 4 years to help their daughter. They just never decided not to, one $600 transfer at a time, until the decision made itself. This is the real casualty of the bank of mum and dad. It's not just the 28-year-old in the guest bedroom. It's the 63-year-old who will now clock in for 4 more years than they planned, quietly, without ever being asked if that was the deal they wanted to sign up for. The lesson? Generosity without a ledger isn't generosity. It's a blank check with someone else's retirement written on the memo line. Track it, name it, or it will spend itself. Look back at Derek, Sasha, Jake and Melissa, Marcus, Angela, Kevin, and Diane and Robert. 7 completely different situations. One identical mechanism, appearing every single time. Dependency doesn't arrive as a crisis. It arrives as a convenience. Nobody sits down and decides, "I will now become financially dependent on my parents for the next 5 years." It's a $500 transfer here, a down payment there, a guest bedroom with no move-out date. Convenience, repeated without limits, becomes structure. And structure, once it's load-bearing, is brutal to remove. Every story above shares the same 3 missing ingredients. 1. No named amount. Nobody said, "This is exactly how much, and here's when it stops." 2. No timeline. Just for now is not a timeline. It's the absence of one, dressed up to feel responsible. 3. No honest accounting of the true cost. To the giver, not just the receiver. Diane and Robert didn't know it was $71,000 until it was too late to plan around. That's the whole war in 3 sentences. Not laziness, not failure. A structural blind spot that exists in loving families precisely because they love each other too much to keep score.
You don't win this war by refusing help or by cutting off family.
You win it by putting a skeleton on something that used to be fog. Move 1. Name the number, out loud, with a date attached. Not, "Help me with rent sometimes." Instead, "I need $400 a month for 4 months while I rebuild my emergency fund. And after month 4, I'm off this completely." A number with an end date is a bridge. A number with no end date is a permanent installation. Move 2. Build the 60-30-10 floor before you build the lifestyle. 60% to needs that keep the lights on. 30% to future you. Savings, investing, debt payoff. 10% and only 10 to the lifestyle upgrades that make you feel like you're winning. Derek, Sasha, and Kevin all inverted this ratio, spending the lifestyle percentage first and letting someone else quietly cover the needs percentage. Move 3. If you're the parent, track it like a spreadsheet, not a feeling. Diane and Robert's real mistake wasn't generosity. It was never converting love into a number they could see. A shared note in your phone, date, amount, reason, turns invisible drift into a visible decision you can actually choose to keep making, or stop.
Here's the truth this war is built to hide from you. Needing help once is not weakness. Needing help forever, without ever naming the terms, that's the trap. The bank of mom and dad isn't going anywhere. Family will always be the first call in a real emergency. And that's not something to be ashamed of. But there's a difference between a bridge and a permanent residence. And almost nobody draws that line on purpose. They just wake up one day, at 34 or at 63, and realize the bridge became the house. So look at your own life tonight. Is there a number nobody's named? A date nobody's set? A just this once that's happened 11 times? Name it. Date it. End it. That's how you win a war nobody else